This one was different. So what I'm going to share about today is just the last pregnancy that I just went through with my wife. And I'd say last pregnancy, not as in the last. That's not a question that I'm answering today. It's more of a this what just happened. Me and my wife had something called a wild pregnancy. Now, I'm going to look it up online, but I'm going to show you what the definition is here, but I'm going to tell you what it is, what I went through. Now, what a wild pregnancy is this, that you have no practitioners, no doctors, there's nothing, none of the medical system things that they do. So none of the checkups, none of that stuff. And you're just going through it. And you're trusting your body, you're trusting what's happening. And so we only had one ultrasound. And normally in pregnancies, you have a bunch of ultrasounds. You have your anatomy scan, you have your Down syndrome, you have all these different scans. I'm not going to go into that. So we only had the one ultrasound. And the one ultrasound was just mainly because we wanted to see there's a baby in there. It's moving. It's this big. Cool. And in that wild pregnancy, there's a couple things that my wife decided, and I'm going to talk to you guys about how that. So in order to get started with this story, it has to start, I would say, when we got pregnant. The first time we found out we were pregnant. So my wife comes to me and says, I'm pregnant. That makes sense. We're married. So we're being fruitful and multiplying. And from there, we had to start making decisions. So the first decision we had to make is hospital or home. Now, after my first home birth experience with my son, I was like, nope, I do not want to go home again because that was such a cleanup. That was so much mess. And more of the thing of, I was just being a big wuss. I didn't want to clean up again. And that was literally the only thing I was thinking about. And I wasn't thinking about any of the other things that could happen. I was just thinking about the cleaning up part. And I was encouraging her to, we can go to the hospital. We don't have to check in. We don't have to do all this stuff. We can just show up to the hospital and they'll deliver us. If you didn't know this, is that a hospital cannot deny you if you need help. So if you just showed up to a hospital and it's like, my wife's pregnant and we need to give birth, the registration and all that stuff, you don't need to go through that. They can do all that stuff later. So anyways, so at that point I was like, let's go to the hospital. So we went from month 1, month 2, she's in her first trimester, throwing up and a lot happening. And just going through this moment in terms of pregnancy. And at that point, as a man, my mindset's on locking in because there's a whole other mouth that needs to be fed. So now I'm trying to pay attention to, I need to get this thing running, I need to get that. I ended up getting my TED Talk, and this was before she got pregnant. It's all coinciding with the same thing. But it's actually pretty fun. It's really cool. And there's a lot of other stuff that's happening in my life as well. This video is not about that. So she goes and she decides, well, she doesn't go inside. What ends up happening next is that in the second trimester, she now decides that she wants to do a wild pregnancy and what's known as a free birth. And I was like, and so now this is now two things. One is we're not going to the hospital. Two is there's gonna be a lot more responsibility on me, and I'm gonna talk to you about the responsibility that I had during that time. So she decides I want to do this free birth, and I'm like, so we start looking it up and seeing what that's about. And in my head, I was scared. I was a scared little boy. And I think in every man, there's that scared little boy, and you have to learn how to not conquer, because I don't think that's what you do, is you have to learn how to move past that, because you're gonna have that feeling. It's not, you can't control that feeling. I can't control, I don't want to be a scared little boy. No, I'm scared because a lot of things that I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and what the world tells me is that you have to be a doctor to give birth or a midwife. You need to know all these things, and these are all important, but there's also another side to this, which is her body knows exactly what to do. And for thousands of years, we've been doing this. And as we humans, we've been doing this birthing thing. And so at that point, I was like, I had to suck it up. And I say suck it up, but I had to take a deep breath and be like, all right, I'm here for you, because this is what she wanted. And I was game to deal with it with her and go through this with her. And so at that point, I had to start preparing myself. The preparation that led into my wife sending me a lot of reels on Instagram and me taking them as much as possible in. But the preparation was a couple things. One was as a coach. I'm already a personal trainer and I can get into coach mode real simple, but I need to understand how she wants to be coached. And she actually just told me, these are the things I want, which made life so simple, because at that point I knew exactly what she needed from me in that moment. Because removing the guesswork from me makes it simple, because then I can actually shine. So she told me that. So the other thing we had to do is because of the last time with my son, we had a home birth, we already had all the things ready. So to get her mind at ease, what she wanted to make sure is that we had all those things ready, which we did. And we had it all ready to a point where it's like, I know exactly where it is. As soon as we need it, we have it. So it's affidavits and different things. If you live in Ontario, I will put the link in the description. In the comments, I'll put what you need, but there are a lot of things that you need if you're deciding to have a free birth or home birth in your house. A free birth particularly, you need to know, have a lot of stuff. So at that point, we did put ourselves on. We went to a lot of midwives. So I was like, so let's get some midwives. Let's get some other people involved. And we went on a wait list on every midwife, which I think is funny. I think God is hilarious, because I think it's like, this is happening like this. And it's like, I guess it's happening like this. So I'm going to go more into because that's the thing leading up to the pregnancy. And I don't want to spend too much time on that, because what I want to talk about is the actual pregnancy and the things that you need. And I want to get into the lessons. So one of the things that we talked about as we were going into the actual pregnancy part was what she needed in terms of coaching, and she needed was hip squeezes in terms of pain management, and she needed me to remind her to smile and tell her she looks beautiful. These are important things, folks. Make sure you do this. But she also needed me to be the support. What she also needed from me, which she didn't say, was she needed me to be strong. And what I mean by being strong is this. In that moment, I couldn't be worried about certain things. I had to deal with a lot of that stuff, not within that space, because the key about pregnancy and birth is that when the vibe changes, I don't even know the vibe, is when the atmosphere changes and you're like, oh no, that can be thrown off in terms of to the woman. And all of a sudden now things get delayed and things start getting worried. So I had to show this face of like, no, this is going to happen. So I had to get my mind right. And the way I get my mind right would be straightforward. Like when I was in prison, I did this exercise of, I want to say it's good case, bad case, but it's like, here are all the different scenarios that can happen. And I went through all the different emotions. And the reason why I did that while I was incarcerated is because I had no control over things. And I realized something is that at this point, I have no control over any of these things. So the same thing is, as soon as we get into this birth, I have no control over the things that happen. I have control over myself, and I have control over what I do. I have control over how I encourage, but I don't have control over things that I don't have control over. So at that point, I had a list of different things that I thought of that could happen. So it's like, what if she hemorrhages? What if the baby's cord gets stuck around her neck? What if this happens or that happens? And I'm not going to go into all of it, because there's a lot of stuff that could happen, but these are all complications that happen during birth, and they could happen within a hospital or at home. And does it make it worse if it happens in a hospital, or makes it worse if it happens at home versus in a hospital? Not really. It happens. And so at that point, that's not a thing that's in my control. So I didn't want to put too much attention on it. So anyways, from that point, she started laboring at home. So this is 41 weeks and 5 days. So she starts laboring at home. And I remember on the Monday, I'm like, this baby's coming out by Thursday. She did not like that, because at 41 weeks, you just want the baby out now. Get this thing out of me. Eviction notice, get out, move. But I was like, this baby's coming out on Thursday. And I'm like, your water's gonna break on Wednesday night, and then boom. So lo and behold, it's Wednesday night. We're watching Young Sherlock. Great show, by the way. And we're just getting ready. And then I prayed with her, and she went to bed. And then her mucus plug was already starting to come out. But then her water breaks at 2 a.m. And so we have 4 kids at the time, and another one was on the way. And so I went to sleep with the 4 kids to keep them asleep through the night, because we do a lot of co-sleeping, so our kids end up in our room. So tonight was not one of those nights they could end up in our room. So I went to sleep with them, and then she woke me up around 4 o'clock. And at that point, it's go time. So I brushed my teeth because who wants a coach with bad breath? And so I instantaneously brushed my teeth and got that ready. And then I went right into the hip squeeze. And then around 5 o'clock, she's like, I want to go into the tub. So I'm like, I followed her, and I was like, what do you need from me at this moment? Got some candle lights going, got some stuff happening. And at that point, when there was no longer the hip squeezes in terms of the thing that I've done before in the past with her, which is physical, it was the mental stuff, which was talking her through it, which is, okay, remember, every contraction leads us closer to our baby. Remember, going in a contraction is going up a hill and then it comes back down. Utilize every contraction. Every contraction has a use case. And so reminding her of that, and then reminding her to do deep diaphragmatic breathing. So breathing from her diaphragm right low, and then letting her know that she looks beautiful as she's doing it. And she did look beautiful. It's not me just saying it. I was witnessing life happening. And that's what the part that changed me. Was not the preparation, not the wild birth, not the free birth, but the moment that the baby came out and leading up to it. Because as leading up to it, so let me talk more before we get into that part. Leading up to that part, leading up to her giving birth and coaching her through everything, there were moments in time where I actually knew that this is hard. And she had a playlist, and I knew the song that she wanted. She told me, she's like, I want this song, and the song is Come Away With Me. I'll put it right here. But she wants this song, so I saw her, she just looked like, not discouraged, but like, so I'd play the song and she'd go again, and then she'd feel discouraged, and then I was taking photos of her as well, because I was also a photographer as well as a doula that day, and I caught a photo of her at 7:04. Okay, and at 7:04, with the photo, you see the photo, and she looks as if she's tired, and she is, and 10 more minutes, the baby comes out. She doesn't know it in that moment yet, but in 10 minutes, the baby comes out. And all she needed was a little bit more. So I took that photo, and then as soon as I took that photo, I put my camera away and I put the song on again. And as that song is playing, it's a reminder to her and myself that it's going to be wild, it's going to be great, it's going to be full of him. Well, this pregnancy is known as a wild pregnancy, right? Means the fact that we're not doing anything with the system. We're actually just utilizing our faith and leaning on it hugely, because at that point, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Well, guess what? This baby's not being seen. It's only been seen in one ultrasound. And so at this point right now, we just have to trust the baby's in the right position, that the baby is coming out, the baby's practice breathing is happening, all that stuff, we're just believing. And at that point, you're just leaning on the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And that, in that moment when we were doing that, it was absolutely wild for me, because I'm now watching a baby coming out. So the whole thing about, right, 10 centimeters, and it's like a watermelon pushing through a lemon. I'm watching a baby come out, and as I see this baby come out, I'm seeing the beginning of life. And now here's the next thing, because the view I had was not the front view, right? So in the hospital, what you see is she's standing on the stirrups and pushed out, and you see the back of the head, right? But I had the back view, so I was seeing her from the back, and what I saw, because my wife was in a position where she was kneeling, I saw the head and the eyes, and I'm seeing it come out, and I'm seeing her come out, and I see her come out. And before I get there, let's go back to this. I have to remind you, before that photo that I took, in my head, I'm like, cool, play the song, and then I go get gloves on, I go get all these things because I'm trying to help her through it. And I ended up getting these yellow gloves, and I ended up delivering my baby yellow gloves. Oh my gosh, yellow dish gloves. And I got a bag because I want to get all the fetal, the excrements coming out of everything. I want to get all that stuff out of the tub. And in my head, I'm like, well, I'm just throwing it in the toilet, but I was just like, just get it out. So I grabbed the entire garbage bag. So anyways, I'm holding I have these yellow gloves in my hand, and then the baby's coming out, and she goes like this, and she comes like this, and she's like right here, and then as soon as she gets past the shoulders, she starts falling, and in my head, it was slow motion, and it wasn't a huge big fall. We're not falling from the CN Tower, but it was a fall, and I saw it, and I'm watching it in slow motion, and my dad reflexes kicked in, and I was like, and I caught her in my hand, and then as I caught her, I threw her back up to my wife, and I said, "Here you go." And then I also said, and then our kids were also back in the bathroom. They woke up. It was 7:16, and they were just like, and I said, "It's a girl." And I looked back at them, and my wife wanted to do that because she wanted to surprise everyone, because we only had one ultrasound, and that one ultrasound, guess what? It didn't tell us an anatomy. I had no clue what I was having. I like having knowledge in terms of what baby I'm having, so I know how to feel. And it's not like I'm going to change how I feel, but it's preparing, it's imagining who this baby is and what this baby's gonna do. I couldn't do that until I actually had her. And in terms of the name, didn't know the name until a couple hours after she was born. So anyways, tell you about the name, because the name is the powerful part. So the baby comes out, and she's now crying, and my kids they're like, ah, and I'm thankful, because of all I just told you about all the things that you can imagine of the things that could happen. Everything's going well, and I'm like, oh, this baby's happy. Kids are smiling, kids are jumping, and we get into what we do when we have babies. So when you're in the hospital, this is where the beauty of having it at home is, going back into why my wife wanted it at home, and I listened to her, is that she feels comfortable here. And at that point, she feels comfortable. She feels, I want to have the baby here. So at that point, I need to make this space as comfortable as possible. So we did. And she doesn't feel comfortable at the hospital, and duly granted, because the hospital starts doing some random stuff to you, and they're like, look that way, poke, right? Anyways, so after the baby comes out, the kids are excited. They all have their own moments where they're holding the baby and they're looking at it. And the way that my kids hold this baby is amazing, because I started picturing the age gaps of all my children, and I'm like, oh wow, it's the first time I'm thinking about this. My oldest daughter is 9. She'll be driving in the next 6 years, 16, 7 years, 7 years. By the time that she's driving, this baby I just had is gonna be 7. By the time that my oldest daughter is 20, this baby is going to be 9. Literally, when I was 20, I was driving a car. My eldest daughter will be able to drive a car and drive her little sister to these different places. It's absolutely wild thinking about that. And not gonna get too deep into that part, because that's more about mortality. But I guess life makes you think about that. When you see a life happening, it's entering the train. And now here's another interesting thing, is that this baby that we just had is in a whole different generation. So me and my wife are millennials. We're older millennials. We're the ones that adapted to everything. My kids are Generation Alpha. This baby is call it Generation Beta. And she's another generation than my kids. And my kids' upbringing is totally different than hers. My oldest daughter remembers the way that things are going to be different than how she's going to see stuff. And it's wild thinking about that. But it's also wild thinking about the fact that I just had a wild birth. No assistance by doctors, no midwives, no nothing. And so now, here's the lessons. It doesn't matter, so take this down, men. It doesn't matter what type of birth you're having. The first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that your wife is comfortable. You need to make sure that she is comfortable wherever she's going. So whether it's at the hospital, midwives, OB, doula, birth practitioner, sister, brother, whoever's gonna be with her, she needs to feel comfortable. And that's the first and foremost. Because and I'm a big advocate of, if she feels comfortable in the hospital, whether I like hospital or not, it's irrelevant, because it's not my family, it's your family. But you need to make sure she's comfortable. And don't force her, or don't put your fears on her. Because at the end of the day, if you got to get behind the plan that she has. Because in order for that plan to happen, you got to be with it. And if you're like, I don't want that plan, it needs to be this, you guys need to hash that out and figure out how you're going to have this baby. That's 1. 2, once you end up knowing how you're going to have this baby, you need to start preparing mentally. Because like I said, whether this happens in a hospital or anywhere. When it comes to pregnancy, and I'm not going to be like, what's the worst that can happen? Well, the worst that can happen is that this goes to full term. And that's a whole other thing that you have to deal with. It's a whole other talk. If you have to get over that, because what she doesn't need from you in that moment is for you to tell her about that, because that's not in her control and it's not in your control. And at that point, you're going to tell her something. And babies, pregnancies, or humans, we can be affected by the emotions of others, and that type of emotion and that type of words and those types of thoughts can really bring everything down. And at that point, it's like instead of speaking faith, you're speaking fear. And fear, you don't want that growing in your mind. So get over it. That's number 2. Get over it. Number 3, once you have the place you want to give birth and you've gotten over it, be there for her. So what you want to know is, what does she need from you, right? In that moment. And if she doesn't know, then what you need to do is you need to encourage her to go off and think about it. Write down what it is you need from me in that moment. And these are the things that I'm going to do. And have a list of 3 things. Basic, real simple. It's like, if I do these 3 things, we're good. So it's like the physical stuff, know a couple things that you can do for her. So here's a couple things. Hip squeezes work really well because it opens up the hips and pelvis. There was like another one where it's like moving the butt up and down. So it's actually moving what's known as the sit bone and moving it up and down, getting the hips opened. There's something that's called relaxin that's a hormone that gets released right as a woman is about to give birth, or not even after, but before she gives birth. It goes up real high when they give birth, and that's the thing that helps them open up their vagina. It's 10 centimeters. So you need to know what she needs from you, because once you know what she needs from you, you can provide it. If you don't know, find out. And I'd say the last thing, but here's number 4, which is start coaching yourself on how to deal with it. Get your emotions in check, but start coaching yourself on how to give her that thing that she needs during that time. So she needs a coach, be a coach. Be there. Don't say anything. So men, don't say anything that you're worried about in the pregnancy. Keep that to yourself, because she doesn't need that in that moment. Like I said, get that over with and done with too. And then number 5, which is the last one, enjoy the process, because sometimes we take it for granted having kids. And like I said, I have 5, and me and my wife have never tried for one. And I don't say that as a sort of word, but more of we've never really been like, let's have kids. We've always just had kids. And because of that, the older I get, I don't take kids for granted, because you pass on a lot of stuff to them, like your legacy and your DNA and their upbringing. Right? You're preparing the next generation. And these next generation of humans are going to have your coding, and they're going to live and do things that you would always dreamt about. But have fun. Especially if you decide to go into a wild birth, which I would highly suggest you do, because that moment is between you and your wife is unlike any other moment. Because a couple things that post that I can tell you that I now see in my wife, because and this is one thing, I encourage you to watch your wife give birth. I encourage you to, because one thing is that you have a new revelation on life. The next thing is that you realize that she's an absolute champ, because I wouldn't do it, right? Lemon, watermelon, but you realize she's a champ, and you actually realize, in terms of what I witnessed on my wife, is the emotional perseverance that she showed in that moment where she's about to give up, but she just kept on going for this thing that it hurts. And it doesn't hurt in a way, I don't know what it hurts, I'm not a woman. But from what I hear, it hurts. And when it comes down to it, my wife was an absolute champ going through it. It looked like the easiest birth I've ever seen. And she came back and said, I'm sore. And I get it. It's like running a marathon, right? And it's like, wow. So I realized she's a champ. There is a newfound source of love that I have for her. And it's not because she brought my kids into the world. It's because she was willing to go through all that. My wife sacrifices a lot, and I say sacrifices because she's homeschooled. She's always here, and that's a sacrifice, because she could get a job, she could go out and do stuff, but this is work too, and she has that mission mindset. That's huge. So in that moment when I watched her give birth to my 5th baby, it was one of those moments I just let that out. Wow, she's absolutely amazing. And I appreciate her, love her. Now, with our daughter, we ended up naming her, and that name is Alora Faith. And Alora means the Lord is the light of my salvation. And faith is obvious. This pregnancy took a lot of faith, and in life it's going to take you a lot of faith to get to the places you want to go to, and it was a reminder for us. So in a wild pregnancy, there's a couple things that you need. I'm going to drop in the comments what you're going to need in terms of all that stuff. And a free birth pregnancy, you're going to need the same thing, but I'll drop it over there. But a couple things that I really like at the end of the day, at the end of all this, I think the biggest thing that I took from all of this is that you don't really understand everything until you're fully in it. So when my wife asked me to do the free birth or a wild pregnancy, and I saw the reels and I saw all these men and I watched all these things, I didn't know what to expect until I was actually doing it. But as a man, you're not just there to watch. And so I realized that in that moment, you're there to show up in the way that she needs to show up in that moment. To support her, to lead her when she needs it. You need to allow her body to, you have to encourage her to allow her body to, she knows what she's doing, to get in tune with that. And my wife, like, that was one of the things I encouraged her. And she was just moving, she was doing everything, and I was just there to watch. And it looked like a beautiful dance of pregnancy. You have to lead her. You need to be present the entire time. My 4 kids said, we were standing back here. My one daughter said, I saw everything. And then the other girls, I didn't see anything. And then my son's like, he's like, baby. And if I was paying attention to them in that moment, I wouldn't have paid attention to my girl, El Boogie, dropping and me catching her. And when you do that, I know you do, you walk away at a different level of respect for your wife. And you start realizing something. It's not just for her, it's for your kids. It's also for yourself. In terms of this family that you're creating and you're having, and you have this moment and you're going through this stage of life, pause for a second. It's a moment that time forever stops having kids. You have a kid, that's a moment in time that stops. Your wedding, that's a moment in time that stops. For me, these moments in time, positive moments and negative moments. And I have, in these positive moments, at these times where my kids are born, it's a time of my wedding when I said I do. I cried like a little baby on that day. And you realize that these are not just moments, these are milestones. These are, in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, canon events. They are meant to happen. And you're living through it and watching it. I encourage you to embrace it. There's moments where everything stops. And if I can take that moment and just put myself in it, I will be able to put myself in it for the rest of my life, seeing everything, and I remember it vividly. And you get to be part of something most people truly never see. People don't see this. And my wife pointed out something. Imagine, in your circle, there are so many people, pretty much no one, that has seen a birth, up close, personal, in it, right? And I have. So my big thing is this: if you get the chance, wherever your wife gives birth, be there. Turn off the phones and be present with her throughout the entirety of it, because that moment you'll never get to relive again, but you'll get to remember it the way that it happened. And what you want to make sure is you're bringing that child into the world, you want the best memories of it, and you get to create it. Peace.